I want you to raise your hand if you have a room or even a drawer in your house that you just keep closed. Anyone? Cool. Keep your hand up if you've thought about dealing with it and then you decided, today is not the day. Same? Yeah. Oh, my husband's raising his hand too. Great. So that is exactly why we're here. I'm Becky Seda. I spend my days running a real estate team, but that's not why I'm here today. I'm here today because I specialize in helping people downsize. So some of the things that we are talking about, I work with every single day, and I think it's so important that we have a conversation long before it's time to actually make a move, because it's a lot less stressful if you have the right plan. So let's talk first about what today is and what today is not. So today we're going to talk about a process, because there is a process. We're going to have practical advice and honest answers. What today is not, and we're not going to have a sales pitch, and we don't have a magic fix. I'm sorry if you were looking for that. Not a magic button. And this is I think the thing that I want you to really know in your gut. This is not a one size fits all. Not everyone walks this journey the exact same way, and so we are giving you tools and a process, and then within that, then you can fit that to your lifestyle and your needs and your particular circumstances. What no one likes to talk about, your kids probably don't want your stuff. Now, they might want some of it. You should ask them. I have a beautiful egg plate that I stole from my mom, and I tricked her into thinking that she gave it to me, but actually I stole it. And then I also have a really beautiful chest in my entryway that is a family heirloom, and I love it. But do I want everything that my parents have in their home? No, because I have things in my own home, right? Has anyone else been in that situation where a loved one passed away and they thought you wanted everything? Yeah, it's hard. All right, so this is number 2. This surprises a lot of people. Usually I recommend that you sell your house completely empty. And we'll talk about that a smidge. We won't spend a ton of time on that because we do have a seminar about that coming up. But I do think that in many cases, for safety purposes, just for the ease of you, because it's very intrusive to have your home on the market while you're living in it, I typically recommend that you do not live in your house while it's on the market, that you actually sell it empty after you've moved and done your estate sale and all of that. And number 3, the wrong house prep work can really cost you a lot of money. We did a seminar about this, so if you are new to our seminar series, in March we had a seminar about this. It's on YouTube, but I'm happy to have this conversation with you as well. But what I have found is that a lot of people start really early at doing some home maintenance and some home repairs, and the things that they're spending money on are actually not going to move the needle on their home value, and the buyers are not going to value that the same way that the homeowner does. So I have a very specific set of things that I suggest that people take care of as they're living in their home, and I have a list of things that I suggest you just not, that is probably not money worth spent. So I will say that these are some things that are topics that not a lot of people talk about, but they are our truths, and we are the Truth Series, so here we are. I think that is the majority. Yep. So let's go ahead and have our our panelists come on up. Okay, so Catherine, come on. Joe, you're first. And guys, I'm probably going to mess this up. But Joe, I might accidentally call her mom. So forgive me if I do that. But Joe is my mom. And Liz Donnelly, she's our estate sale professional. But Joe's our move coordinator. So she helps us with the move coordination. And we'll talk more about that. And then Catherine is a professional organizer. So we're so happy to have all of you. And I think we stay there for just a minute. Yep. What? I got her. I did. Liz, you're so bossy. Okay. Let's see. Before we dig in, I do want to draw your attention to just a few things that will help you along as our speakers talk. So the handout that you have in front of you, there's a note sheet, but this is also kind of your take home. So if you'll take a second and look at this. These are some questions, some self-reflection that I would recommend that you look at as the speakers are talking. And then again, as a reminder, we'll do Q&A at the end. So the notes section is a really good place to write that down. You also have a few other resources in front of you. There's the 10 steps to downsizing and a sheet about some upcoming events that we have. And then of course, your yellow sheet we'll talk about towards the end. But I really want you to focus on taking some notes and doing some self-reflection, because as I said, this is such a personal journey for you guys. So make sure that you utilize that. We put a lot of thought into it. Let's start with truth number one, the process, sorry. Okay, so the process that we talk about, so one of the things that I tell people is that there is a particular process to downsizing. It usually surprises people that the first thing is not to actually start packing up a bunch of stuff. You can do that over the years, of course, but it's really hard to know what you need to keep and what you need to let go until you know where you're going. It feels very, very abstract into that point. So as I told you before, the different education partners have different materials over there. The one on my table is talking about the difference between decluttering and downsizing. So decluttering is fine to start doing, but downsizing is something different. So if you want that packet, it's at my table afterwards, go grab that. But you need to know where you're going before you actually start the downsizing process. Then you're going to need to understand the new space, which that's what Joe is going to talk about shortly. You'll plan what you're going to take. Then you make your move. You leave the things you're not taking. Leave them in the house because you just want to take what you need. And then you're going to make a plan for the rest. And then you prep and sell the house. A lot of people get that backwards. And so today we're going to talk about why this process is so important and why we have seen it work so well over and over and over and over again. And they are shaking their heads because they are saying, yes, that's so true. Truth number one, the overwhelm isn't the stuff, it's the decisions. So Catherine, you said something when we spoke before that I think is going to land for a lot of the people in the room, that people are not supposed to know how to do this. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so when clients or individuals decide to start to take on this process, whether it is just decluttering or you're into the downsizing process, this is not something that individuals do on a daily basis. It may be something that you haven't ever done in your lifetime, particularly if you've been in a home for a few decades. So I'd like to remind clients that this is not necessarily a skill set that, they're expected to have, even though I do think there is this societal expectation that of course we should know how to downsize our stuff. But if it's not something that you do on a daily basis like my team and I do, you don't have a lot of perspective for how long it's going to take you to go through that closet or the garage or your kitchen. You don't necessarily know off the bat what to do with all of the things that you do decide to get rid of. And there are some, while simple, tried and true techniques that we use with our clients, and I love to share freely because it's not rocket science with individuals to really help them move them forward in that process, because this is something that we have done with a lot of people and we do it on a daily basis.
What do you see that people's initial holdups are?
So a lot of times, these are homes that people have been in for 30, 40, 50 years. There is an understandably large amount of stuff and a large amount of overwhelm that goes into that. And I think that that overwhelm of an unfamiliar process can really stop them before they ever get started, because they don't know how this is going to go. They don't have a plan necessarily, and it just feels incredibly overwhelming to have to deal with everything. And so they don't get started.
Yeah.
And sometimes just getting started can be the biggest and hardest first step for people to make.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's indicative of like what we talked about, like, does somebody have the junk room, right? And I know, Liz, it's not something, I like to throw curveballs, but I'm certain that when you walk in to do estate sales, do you find the junk room pretty fast?
Junk rooms and junk drawers.
Uh-oh. Try again. We did a test. Let me see it. Yeah.
Junk rooms and junk drawers.
Yeah, those junk drawers are a lot. Joe, when you walk into someone's home for the very first time, what are they typically truly wrestling with the most?
I think a book. Or am I there now? No? Hang on. This is going to be fun. Which one actually, you know, this reminds me of the thing like in Las Vegas where they put the thing under the cup and you shuffle it to see which one it is. We won't know which microphone to use.
I thought it was like senior citizen hour with
Hey, hey, rude. Ask me again. Because I'm a senior.
Okay, so when you walk into someone's home for the first time, what do you find that they are truly wrestling with the most?
I think it's the stuff that they've accumulated because people have passed away. It's Aunt Mabel's whatever, and it's Dad's whatever, and there's Mom's favorite recipe book, and you may not have opened it for 4 years or 10 years or however long, but it's hers. And those are things that are really tough, I think, to let go of.
Well, and I think that that's to the point of our truth that we're focusing on too, because it's probably not about that particular plate or that particular piece of furniture. Right. It's about the emotional. It
is. There's an emotional attachment to the stuff, and that can be very difficult. Can I use the crystal?
You
this
can.
is a good place for that?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
I usually mess up the order for her, but I've been doing that for a long time. I had a person that I was working with, a gentleman, and his mother had a beautiful crystal set, and I would say, does crystal sell real well most of the time?
No.
And so he had all this beautiful crystal, and it was his mother's. And he was in his late 80s, and he was having a really hard time letting go of it. And he knew he wasn't going to use it. He hadn't used it in his house. And so we had a talk, and it took us a while, but what we finally decided was for him to pick out only 2 or 3 pieces of that crystal that he really liked and that he thought he might have a use for, like a bowl maybe to put his keys in or something like that. And so he would still have a piece of it and a part of it, but he would let the rest of it go, and we settled on the idea that we hoped that somebody who really liked crystal and really wanted the crystal would end up with it, so it was almost kind of like a gift from him to share something that he loved with someone else that would also love it. And he really got okay with that. You know, he picked out his 2 or 3 pieces he wanted to take with him, and he was good.
So would you say a big part of your job is really kind of helping people come to peace with some things? Yeah.
I try to help coach them through it. The boxes of photographs, and y'all watch for my husband because he'll start hyperventilating over there when we talk about getting rid of photos. But, you know, coming up with ways to deal with all those photos, because how many boxes of photos do you want to move with you, really?
Yeah. Liz, from your perspective, so when you step in, typically people have already moved out. They've moved into a community or maybe just a downsized home. What do you see, what does the struggle look like on that end between letting go, and what does that conversation sound like?
Well, we've mentioned a few of them already. The people, your kids don't want it, and that's just the brutal truth. Now, I will say I'm starting to see a resurgence in grandkids wanting it. So don't miss that opportunity. Have a conversation with them, because young people are looking for quality, and they can't afford new stuff. So I'm starting to see that trend. I think you have to remember that most of the people have never done an estate sale before, and it'll probably be the only time in their lives. So they don't know the process, and they don't know what it's going to cost. And so I think a lot of people have trouble integrating that, and that your crystal's not worth anything anymore, or that your china's not worth anything anymore, because times have changed. I just had a sale last week, And you know what surprised me the most was this guy had a bag full of Houston Rockets t-shirts from the 90s. So they were very popular. And so my point to you is, when you start decluttering or downsizing, don't throw stuff like that away, because you don't know. It was a surprise to me, and I'm in the business. So be careful what you throw away.
Yeah, and Catherine, yes, I agree with that, because I think people are often surprised, and I'm hoping that we have an opportunity to get to that later, because I want you to talk a little bit about some of that. But I do want to know also, so Catherine, as a professional organizer, I know that you have a lot of people come to you that they say, oh, I'm a hoarder, and they're maybe not a hoarder. And then some people are. I mean, just as we did a hoarder house recently together, didn't we, ladies? Yeah, it was super, super exciting. And we'll talk about that shortly. But I will say, I'm curious from your perspective, what is the difference that you see between somebody who's just cluttered and disorganized and really struggling to let go? What does that difference look like to you?
Oh, I love that. Well, okay, I could talk for 30 minutes about people who hoard and people who think that they hoard or collect. Oh, the collectors. I love the collectors. They're so passionate. So people who are hoarding, that in itself is a medical diagnosis, and that really is a completely separate subject. It's just become a very common term that we use thanks to pop culture and shows that ran probably a decade or so ago. We became a lot more familiar with what that is. But when I have someone call me up and say, well, my sister says I'm a hoarder, I'm like, well, you're not, because you're calling me on the phone, and you know that you know that there's something problematic in your home. There's something you don't like about your home, and you want to fix it. And that is not a trait that you find in someone who is hoarding. So that is a really key difference. Just because your home it feels cluttered to you, and that is subjective. So just keep that in mind. Just because a friend or family member walks in and says your home is a disaster doesn't mean that it is. That's their opinion.
And I'm sorry to disrupt your thought,
Yes.
but what I do want everyone to know in the room is that if you are a collector and you do have a lot of personal items, that is fine.
Yeah.
Do it. It's your home, it's your life, it's your, if you like it and that's what you want, so please don't misunderstand what we're saying. When you decide to downsize, you're going to have to let some things go, but none of us up here would ever walk into someone's home and say, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
this is too, because that's not how we do.
It is your home. It
Yes,
is not my home, and I
totally
don't have
agree.
to live there. And the goal is always that you feel comfortable in your home. And
Yes.
if that is how you feel, then there's not a problem. But I love to use the terms chronically disorganized and situationally disorganized. Chronically disorganized people are just people who struggle with clutter and disorganization. It doesn't mean that they are comfortable in their home. They may be very aware that there is a problem. They just struggle with how to fix that problem, and often struggle with how to create sustainable systems to manage that problem. There are solutions out there. That's not what we're here to talk about today, though. And then there's situationally disorganized, and that may feel very familiar to a lot of people in this room. That's where something in life has changed, and all of a sudden the organization has not become as important, because when you're dealing with health issues, or we see this a lot with the birth of children in younger families, those life changes become far more important, and things just have taken over in life, and all of a sudden you can't keep up with. I mean, probably many people in this room can relate to children in their first few years of life and how quickly they grow out of clothing, and how that clothing just starts to pile up if we don't have a system for getting rid of it. So situationally disorganized is what we see a lot of people in. It's nothing to feel bad about. It's nothing to apologize for. It's just, that's life. And there are ways to get help and to come out of that, but it's...
So like situational disorganization might be something like a death in a family, or an illness, or an injury, or a surgery, something like that, where you just cannot.
Maybe having a family member moving in with you. That could be a young adult family member. That could be a senior family member. Yes, those are great examples of various situations
Things
that just kind of throw your home out of whack.
Yeah, nope, I love that. I love that. So let's go down the panel. We'll start with Joe. And what is your suggestion for a first step, like the thing that you would tell someone to do this week if they're really not sure where to begin?
The medicine cabinet. Most of the time, that's manageable. You know, go to the medicine cabinet, take your trash can with you, and take a bag with you. And so you're going to make, you've got 3 things. Those things that need to be thrown away, okay? Those things that need to be taken somewhere, like old medicine. You're going to take it to the police department or the
CVS
Walgreens or the
wherever
wherever it
takes
is.
it.
And you're going to get rid of those. So you're putting things in the trash, you're putting things in the bag to carry out, and then you're organizing the things back in the cabinet. I'm telling you that probably for most homes, you can do a medicine cabinet in 2 hours or less. And that's what I suggest, is a 2-hour window. And then go do something else. Go watch your favorite show, go for a walk, you know, play with the dog, do something else. 2 hours. Everybody in this room can do 2 hours. And you take care of the medicine cabinet. Now, here's the trick. As soon as you get through with the medicine cabinet, take the trash out to the dumpster. Do not set it aside and think, oh, I'll get that later, because what's going to happen to it? It'll be there next week. This other sack is the same way. Take it right then to your car and put it in the car. And then that way, when you get in the car, there's that bag. Oh, yeah, I need to drop that off. So on the way to the grocery store, I'll drop it off. But 2-hour windows, do not tackle the closet first. My story about your mother-in-law, real quick, your grandmother, my mother-in-law. She kept telling us while she was working that when she retired, she was going to go bedroom to bedroom to bedroom cleaning out 60 years of stuff. Well, she retired, and we're all waiting for her to start cleaning out the bedrooms.
Could we say that she was chronically disorganized?
Oh, or something. And I loved her. She was wonderful. She was a very sweet lady.
Yeah.
But we came to visit, and guess what? There was nothing done in any of the rooms, and she sat down at the dining room table, and she said, I've made a decision. I've decided that you can all clean it out after I'm dead. Oh, thanks. Thanks a lot. And that's exactly what happened, because it was too much. But if you'll just do a cabinet or a drawer, not the whole kitchen, one drawer, then if you just do a little bit every day, you will be amazed. Seriously, this is all joking put aside. You'll be amazed at how quickly you can get it all under control.
Liz, what's your tip?
Can I have 2?
Well, she did, so why not?
So Joe is absolutely right about, some people think, I'm just going to wait till
Keep
I
your mic a
die and
little
make my
closer
kids
to you.
take care of it. Don't do that. I have seen more angry adult children in my business than and it's not fun.
Let's do a show of hands. How many have cleaned out a house from someone before? Look at that. Look around you. Was that enjoyable? Did you like that experience? No. Would you wish that on somebody else? So let's all resolve to not do that to our kids, okay?
So I'm not going to give you a tip on how to declutter. I'm going to give you a tip for preparing to declutter. And I would recommend that you call an estate sale professional for a consultation or an organizer for a consultation before you get started, so they can give you some framework and you'll understand the process better, and that will help you start. And my consultations are free. Hers are. Most estate sale professionals are free. Call them up and say, take a look at my home, and I will give you an assessment and tell you some stuff to do that will help you. Don't throw away your Houston Rocket t-shirts. I will help you figure all that out in advance.
I just really want to underscore what Joe said, because typically my advice is to start small and to start with something that doesn't feel emotional or sentimental. And I can't think of a better spot than a medicine cabinet to fit that bill. And then my other piece of advice is because here's the thing. If you're not decluttering regularly, you're not going through your stuff regularly, it's probably because you don't enjoy doing that, and that's okay. I can be the weird one up here who does enjoy doing that, and I've made it my job. There's a lot of things I don't enjoy doing as well, and I pay people to do that stuff for me. But when you don't enjoy doing something, it's really hard to just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to declutter the medicine cabinet today. You're not going to, because you're going to find better things to do with your life. So my piece of advice to tack onto what Joe has already said is schedule a time for yourself and commit yourself to that. Put it onto your schedule, an hour, 2 hours. I would suggest starting with a small amount of time, and stick to it like you would a hair appointment, a doctor's appointment, a lunch appointment. Commit yourself to doing that just to get started. And then what that's also going to do is that's going to give you some perspective on how long and how difficult this process is going to be. You might actually find that cleaning out your medicine cabinet was easy, or at least easier than you thought. Maybe it was actually somewhat enjoyable. And maybe you actually also love the result that you got from tackling that space. I know that when I do go through, and let's just say it's my daughter's room, because that's the space, she's 11, that's the space that gets decluttered most in my house. When I do go through and I've worked in her room and I'm done, I love to just like stand back and admire my work. It feels so good when it's done. And so then I feel motivated to go and tackle something else, because all of a sudden her closet is done, but that bookshelf is a nightmare. So then I'm like, oh, now I want the bookshelf to look really good. So schedule it onto your calendar, stick to your appointment as if it is as important as that hair appointment, and get the work done.
Yeah, no, and I think to piggyback on that, like talk to us about, because I think it's the concept of, has everybody heard the concept of like eating an elephant, like how do you eat an elephant? Yeah, so again, it's not about the stuff, it's about the decisions. And do you find that people typically know how much time something's going to take? Do they underestimate it? Do they overestimate it? Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, and I'd be curious to see what Joe thinks about this too, but I think people are very positive, and they really overestimate how much they can get done in a single session.
Okay.
But I think once they get started and they've done a few spaces, then they have a better understanding of what that process looks like, and they can be more realistic moving forward.
Okay, yeah, do you agree?
If you're looking at running a marathon, are you going to get out and run 25 miles the first day? No, you're going to run down the block and back if you're me. And that's how this works to me, is do the little short things and then build stamina for it. I would still say don't clean out the big walk-in closet all in one day. Do one rack. Just do one. Keep it manageable. And like she said, the endorphins that you get from walking by, I was so goofy when I did this, because I did the medicine cabinet, that I would go in the bathroom for something else and walk over and open the cabinet and look at the medicine because it looks so nice. So it's addictive, that once you kind of get started and you're successful with small things, then you can tackle the bigger things.
So from your perspective as well, I know that we have a lot of caregivers in the room. Where have you seen adult children be helpful in a situation with downsizing, and how have you seen good intentions go sideways?
I really think it goes a whole lot better if you've really decided to do it rather than somebody is forcing you to do it. And that's the move, that's cleaning, that's the clutter, that's the estate sale. If it's your decision, then they can help you instead of dictating to you what you have to do. And let's be honest, nobody likes being dictated to. Nobody, not even little people. They don't like to be dictated to either. So it needs to be something you've decided to do, that you can be honest with yourself and say, it's time. This needs to happen. I think where we get in conflict is when you're clutching at something that I'm not letting go of this ever. And sometimes it's easier if it's not a family member telling you that won't fit. I mean, I've used the example of the woman who was determined she was going to take a table that was going to go to her, and we'd done the floor plan and all of that, and I tried to talk her out of it. I couldn't talk her out of it. So finally I just slid the floor plan across to her and said, show me where it's going to go, because I'm not seeing it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it's hard.
yeah, and it is hard, but it's easier for me to do it because I'm not emotionally attached to any of those things. They're not my inheritance or my
Yeah.
responsibility.
I think family
to clean up.
dynamics are really hard.
It's
and-
hard.
Yeah, yeah. So our second truth today is you can't decide what to keep until you know where we're going. So I want to know, what I have seen from my perspective is that the fear of the timeline and what that looks like freezes people in place. Have you guys experienced timeline getting in the way of that, or maybe something having to move super fast, or anybody have anything to say about a timeline?
I mean, usually when I start work with clients, it's because the process all of a sudden has a hard deadline, or a rough deadline, and all of a sudden they're pushed into this, and so they start to feel extremely overwhelmed. They were overwhelmed before, and now it's like, well, I am moving in at this date, or I need to be out, or all of a sudden a health issue has forced them into a decision. And my comment on that is just that I hate to see that. So I love when clients give themselves more time than even they think they're going to need to make that process easier on themselves.
Yeah, I echo. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the approach is very different if you're moving in a hurry or you're moving, over 2 months. And I've worked with people that are doing it both ways. We moved one woman in just under a week, and it can be done. And
she had a health event.
She had a health event, and her daughter had stepped in and said, I can't do this, and we need to get, I think it was her mother-in-law, but we've got to get her moved in a week's time. And we did it in 6 days. But when you're doing that, you're looking at the approach of what do I have to have in this new place that I'm going. And then after we got those things moved out, then daughter-in-law and son actually came in, and they were looking at some things after that were going to be added to mom's apartment. But initially, it was getting mom and the things she truly needed there, rather than just things that she wanted there. Whereas the people that I've moved that we've had a month or 2 months, it really becomes, what do I want to make sure I have with me because I like it and I enjoy it, or I don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I want, so I've got this slide here. It's hard to see, I'm sorry, but as you can see, it is a floor plan. The floor plan changes every decision. You can't decide what to keep until you know where you're going, and every item has to earn its place. So, Joe, I want you to walk through, so this is a completed floor plan where you've actually input the furniture for someone. Obviously, when you initially sit down with someone, it's an empty floor plan, and you guys walk through that together. So this question is a logistics question. So someone knows where they're going. Maybe they've chosen to do it on their own, which is totally fine if you have the support. So tell them what to do with that empty floor plan and how you walk somebody through this process.
One of the things that's not indicated on here that I do when I go, and that I would strongly advise you to do, because I'm going to tell you how I screwed up because I didn't notice it. You want to know where all of your outlets are. That's an important piece of information. And not only the outlets, because I had done that part on this one, but I failed to notice light switches. And so in this bedroom, you'll notice that the foot of the bed is toward the door, and right beside the door, that's a dresser. And it was a dresser, it's not now, but it was going to sit right there, and we were so excited because he had a very large dresser, and it fit perfectly between the door to the bedroom and the closet. And the movers came in to help arrange everything, and I'm directing where things are going to go. And we've got the bed set up, which was a big hassle because it was the kind that had the lift, so it was heavy. And they had just finished setting it up, and they were bringing the dresser in. And I looked over and I said, "Oh, it can't go there because the light switch." It had several lights. We had the switch for the lights and the fan and all that stuff were right there beside the door, and the mirror was going to cover it up. And the gentleman was so sweet that he said, "It's okay, I can reach behind the mirror." And I said, "Oh, no, we're not doing that." So I sent the movers to do something else, and I said, "You're going to have to let me stand in here for a minute and rethink it." And so what happened was, you'll notice The bed has now, the bed was turned where he was going to walk in the room and sit down on the side of the bed. Well, we had to turn the bed, which the movers were very sweet to me, but that was a headache because it was a heavy bed. But we turned the bed, and then we moved the dresser over in that corner, kind of beside the bed, and we put a real nice bookcase right there so that he could reach the light switch for both his closet and entrance into the room. So, important lesson. Notice where your light switches are and notice where your outlets are. I will do better at that from now on. You know, that we learn the best from mistakes sometimes. So I won't make that mistake again. The I can't remember what it's called. Is it called a hexagon, whatever the table is that's there? That was his computer setup. He didn't have a computer desk. He didn't want a computer desk. He wanted his table. And he wanted it in the living room. So you might look at that and think, that looks really weird. He's got a recliner and a TV, and then behind it is a table and another chair. That worked for him. He loved it because he could sit and work on his computer, and he could see the TV. He could sit in his recliner. You know, it worked for him. And that's what I'm going to tell you, is what works for you, what's important for you.
Yeah.
And it did for him.
Yeah, and I think also the important thing to know is this would have been, when you're going from, I think his home, if I'm remembering correctly, was 3-bedroom. I think it was somewhere in the, he had a formal dining and a formal living. So off the cuff, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 square foot home, to then this is about 800 square feet.
Right.
I've got a Spanish Cove person in the room. Is it 700 square feet? Okay, so this one was a 700 square foot apartment. When you're doing that, the reason that the planning ahead is so important is because if he woke up that morning with the movers just thinking, I'm gonna take this and this and this, there's a few things that could happen. He could get over there and not have the setup that he wants, or he could get over there and find, oh, this doesn't fit. And then the movers don't move that for free. They charge to move it back to the house, so it would cost money. So what we're trying to do is to make the decisions long before the move so that then they know where they're going. Tell me the conversation that you have with people when they're trying to take too many things, and why is the floor plan helpful when somebody's trying to take too much?
Well, I do it by measurement. I truly do. I get the measurements of the apartment, the walls, the windows. I even measure how high off the floor the windows are, because in some of the places I've been, it's low. So that even if you put a couch in front of it, part of the window is going to be below the couch. And that's something I will talk with people about as we're making plans of what we're going to take and where we're going to position it. You can't put things in there that don't fit. Remember my example of the woman that really wanted the table? And the end of that story is she insisted on taking the table, even though she could not find anywhere on that floor plan for it to go. And I said, okay, but when you get there and it doesn't fit, what's the plan? Because she was leaving Oklahoma and going to Dallas area. And so she said, well, it'll work out. Well, long story short, it ended up at her son's house that lived nearby.
Yay!
You have to measure. You have to know how long the couch is. You have to know how tall the dresser is and how wide it is. You got to know all that stuff. And to me, that's pretty easy. Another little side tip that has to do with the rooms, you can contact the community and they will give you a floor plan. And it will be accurate. It may not always have the measurements on it. It's according to which community you're working with. But you can always remember that the doorways in the communities are 3 feet wide. So if the measurement's not on there and you know how to use your ruler to say, okay, 1/4 of an inch equals a foot or 2 feet or whatever it is, you can figure it out by basing it on the door. You can get real close. But the other thing, be sure that it's the it's not just the layout, but it's not flipped, because that happened on this one. I hadn't seen the apartment. I contacted for the floor plan. I got the floor plan, but when I showed it to him, he went, oh, I thought the kitchen was on the other side. And it was like, oh, uh-oh. It was
It was just a
flipped.
mirror image.
And some people don't do well with that flip, so I had to take it and actually flip it so that when they looked at it, it looked right. And some people can see it and they're fine, even though it's flipped. Others just look at it and go, no, that doesn't work.
So yeah, so was this helpful? Was this visual helpful? It was for me to know, like, measuring things out and having a plan. Yeah. Okay. So back to truth number 2. Catherine, you told me about a client who completely overhauled her approach to her kitchen because she found out that it didn't have a dishwasher. Tell us about that.
Yes, because I think this really comes down to getting to know your space, not just the furniture that will fit in your space, but get to know your community that you're moving into. So this was one of the first clients that I helped downsize many years ago. And on move day, when we were unpacking her kitchen, we realized she did not have a dishwasher in her kitchen. And from that day forward, I ask every client, if we don't already know what types of things they have in their unit, we ask these questions. Do you have a dishwasher? Particularly, what does your kitchen look like? Do you have a stove and an oven? Is it a full size? Because I think a lot of people are really ambitious in how much they are going to use that space once they move into that community. Well, she didn't have a dishwasher, so that drastically changed what she wanted to keep, because there was no way she was going to be washing pots and pans and casserole dishes in her sink. So a lot of the stuff didn't even get unpacked. We just boxed it. We just sent those boxes back to her house for her estate sale, and she kept the bare minimum because she was going to be using that kitchen a lot differently than she had planned. But also think about, in your community, what types of meals are provided to you, what types of dining services are available, and do you realistically think that you're going to be cooking a lot in your kitchen, or are you going to be taking advantage of a lot of those services that are now provided to you? So we want to have a realistic look about what your life is going to look like once you move into that community. We talk about cleaning services, all types of other things that you now might have in your new community that you didn't have in your home.
Yeah, no, I love that. So Liz, timelines affect you as well. So,
Yes.
So let's talk, if someone is in the midst of a move, I always recommend that they call you once they've gotten everything out that they want, and then let you do your thing. Tell us what timeline, how that's important to you, how your policies are with that, like how have you seen people win at that, how have you seen them fail with regards to timeline?
Well, that's optimal.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that we have to do it that way, but that is optimal for you to have everything out. And then what that does, if you leave things there for your kids, let's say, oh, they're going to come from Dallas and pick this up in a few weeks, it causes chaos for the team. I mean, it's more difficult. So it's just a lot easier if you move everything first, then we just can go in and do our work. It makes us do it quicker.
Why does it cause chaos?
Because sometimes things aren't marked right, or
which is
another,
risk.
when we have customers come in and look at things, you just don't want to do that if you can avoid it. Now, we do have a way that we can segregate family items into one room, and we just don't let anyone in there, but that needs to be done in advance, not while we're working. We don't want things intermingled with all the stuff you're trying to sell. I think that's more, an estate sale can take anywhere from about 2.5 weeks from start to finish to about a month, depending on the company that you use.
And how far out are most estate sale companies booked up?
3 to 4 months.
Yeah,
I think that's my
like
experience.
a traditional, yeah,
A
we're going to talk,
tradition-
we'll talk
Yeah.
about the differences between different
Yeah,
types. But
there's variations, but, and I want to circle back to saying, I actually had a client one time who pre-planned her estate sale. She didn't need one at the time. There were some family issues that she wanted to circumvent, and she and I had a plan before she needed it. And it was great because she was able to tell her kids in advance what was going on. She was able to make the decisions on her own, and guess what? She ended up, when I went in to do her estate sale, she was in a situation where she couldn't make her own decisions. It was so much easier on the family because she had done that. So it's okay with me, and I'm probably most estate sale people, if we do 2 consultations, pre-planning and then come back in when it's time to do the work.
What happens if someone tries to come and shop their estate sale?
Pardon me?
What happens when someone comes and tries to shop their own estate sale?
I literally had a divorced couple one time. Oh, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Just, I think when we talk about what's really, really difficult is letting it go.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that, there's 2 things people struggle with when I work with them. One is letting it go, and one is not thinking they can do it themselves. We, this generation, your generation, my generation, we have a spirit of I can do that, and I'm going to save money, and I'm going to maximize my dollar. And it just never works out. Don't try to do it's kind of like, why would you try to rework a car if you didn't know how to do it? There's 3 professionals up here, and we do this every day. We know how it's done. We can make it happen faster. Now, you're not going to make as much money if you have someone coming in, but you might actually make as much because we have a network and we have people that we can call on for professionals who we know and trust. So we save you time, and we probably do save you a little bit of money, but we maximize what you're doing. And it gets done in a timely manner.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might be good to add here at this point that when somebody's going to have an estate sale, one of the things that I advise them is move, allow yourself, if it's at all possible, no more than a week to realize what you forgot and then go back and get it. And then once you've handed it over to an estate sale company, don't go back. And don't watch the estate sale online, because there's a whole way that works that and I will tell you real honestly, if I'm sitting across, I'll say it'll tear your heart out.
Yeah.
Because you'll look on there and go, but I paid $2,000 for that and it's going to go for $100? Or, but that's Aunt Mabel's whatever and you're going to sell it for $20? And so it's just better to walk away and truly walk away.
It does hurt.
And it feels good because you're not responsible for it.
Well, estate sales can't create a market. Estate sale professionals can't create a market. We can't make people want Aunt Mabel's chest. So we're going to value it at what it's valued at.
It's okay.
Yeah. And I think that, again, it's like you guys can see my notes. If everything is special, nothing is special, right? And what I mean by that, if you pick up everything in your home and you say, oh, well, we can't let this go, and then you move to the next time, oh, nope, we can't then what's truly, truly special? So if everything is special, nothing is special. Liz, let's talk about both ends of the spectrum, because I know that you see them both. You talk to some people who say, this is my personal belongings are my nest egg. Your house is your nest egg, by the way. Your personal belongings are not your nest egg. So some people think these things are my nest egg, and then other people think nothing I have is worth anything. So talk through that mindset and how you make those decisions.
Well, you and I were just talking about a client this morning that we both had whose husband collected a lot of like Fostoria and different kinds of antique glass, and she thought that was her nest egg. It's not. It's not worth anything because people don't entertain anymore, and they don't want to store that stuff, and they don't want to hand wash it. They don't want to put the china in the micro. You can't put china in the micro anyway. So your stuff, I've been doing this for close to 9 years, and I've only had one estate sale that made a ton of money. And it's a long story, but it was a fraction of what they paid for what they had. And that's just super critical to know about estate sales. Is if you think about the retail ladder, you've got people who do estate sales, and the people that buy from estate sales are the people that do reselling. So they're going to buy at a discount. They've got to make money too. And then you've got higher end retail, which they're going to mark it up even more. So our job is to free up that house. That's your asset. And when you get the house freed up, you're not paying taxes anymore on it. You're not having to keep the utility bills or the home insurance going on. So when Becky and I work together, and I'm not supposed to do a sales pitch, but I'll just say our ethos is, my ethos for my company is, I want that on the market as quick as I can because I want it to be ready for her because I want you to get out from under that financial burden.
Yeah. Okay, so, we're gonna kind of put a little bit of I want to preface this with, I told you that there's no one size fits all. I told you that. But I do have a stance on estate sales that I feel strongly about, and so we're gonna talk about it real quick. I'm gonna let Liz talk about it just super fast because then I want to move to Truth 4, and then I want to take some questions. But why online sales often work better? Okay, a lot of you are familiar with a traditional estate sale, and I have done traditional estate sales. We almost exclusively do online estate sales now, and there's a few reasons for that. And Liz, if it's okay, I'm going to hit these real quick, and then if you have anything to add. There's a wider buyer reach, which I want you to talk about the lamp.
Okay.
The wider buyer reach, there's more privacy. No one sees the address of the house until they win their bid. And then they're given the address of the house to go do the pickup at a set time. There's less traffic at the house, so you're not worried about people like tracking in a bunch of mud or banging things up. You just have less people in your home. And it's an easier start in many cases. So it's faster. She is able to do the setup a lot faster. So the wider buyer reach, in my opinion, gives you a lot more money for your items. And I want you to talk about where you saw that recently with that lamp.
So I had a client who had a lot of kind of Asian style furniture, and there were 2 lamps in the sale, and I looked at the lamps and I'm like, I'm not an Asian antiquities expert, and there's not very many in the United States, I found out, come to find out. But these lamps, I didn't know if they were pottery, but they were beautiful. I didn't know if they were Pottery Barn or they were special. So I listed them on my sale, and I put on there, we will not ship these lamps, because I thought they would just be too much of a hassle to ship. I was getting calls from all over the world, literally, like, will you please ship these lamps if I bid in your sale? So I had the flexibility to pull those lamps from the sale, have them appraised, and I found out that they were some kind of Ming Dynasty, I don't know, there was something special. And I ended up selling those lamps for, I think, about $4,000 each.
So the moral of that story is that would not have happened in a traditional estate sale, because she would have priced them, and the likelihood of having some, a specialty dealer see them would not have happened, and that person would have missed out on it. So as in with many things, you bring in more competition that real fast if something is underpriced.
Exactly. And it's very rare that I would pull something, but I might add, okay, we'll ship it or whatever. But in this case, it was so intense, I thought I need to figure out what's going on this piece.
Yeah. Yep.
If I could tag on, I love that we're talking about the online estate sales, because even in my world, I had a client last year who was needing to clean out a parent's home. They'd had 2 traditional estate sale professionals come to take a look at the house. One wouldn't even walk through the house. They just said, no, we're not going to take this. When they brought me in to come walk through, and there were some special things that we did for them. A lot of times when someone reaches out to us about needing to prep a house for an estate sale, usually I say, actually, I think you're ready to hand it over to the estate sale professional. We ended up doing some work for them before handing it over. They'd never heard of online estate sale professionals, and I arranged for 2 to come walk through the home. Both of them spent a good 30 minutes plus in there, walked through every room. Both said there is a lot of value here, and we can sell and make this happen. And they were just floored because the traditional estate sale professionals wanted nothing to do with the home.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think also if you're somebody who's maybe a minimalist and you don't think you have enough for an estate sale, that's another reason why an online estate sale is good, because you don't have to have enough. or have a lot.
It's particularly useful when you're downsizing because traditional estate sale companies probably not going to be able to make money on a half full house. But online estate sales have a different business model, so we can work it out. That's why it's good.
So hopefully you'll forgive me for taking a little bit of a stance on estate sales, but I just have seen it, and I think it's something that I think it's important enough that I'm willing to say in almost every scenario it's a better option. Okay, last truth today. You can do this, but you need a plan. So, Catherine, you have you're a certified photo manager, and so tell me a little bit about the planning ahead when it comes to photos and all of that.
Yes, I love helping families through their photo collections because that can be a particularly overwhelming category in anyone's home. And a lot of times, you have you have your own family photos. You have all of a sudden inherited your family's photos. I work with a lot of clients who have become kind of the memory keeper of their family, and they have boxes and boxes of photos because digital photos, I mean, we've only been taking digital photos for about maybe 20 years. For some people, that's less. Even the photos from the first 20 to 30 years of my life are all in printed photos. If something happened to my parents' house, I would have no baby photos. And so they take up so much space. And when you're moving into 700 or 800 square feet, you don't feel like you can necessarily give half your closet to the boxes of photos and the photo albums and all of that memorabilia that you have been keeping. And so there's so many wonderful ways to tackle that photo collection while making sure that you are preserving it for yourself and for your children and grandchildren. I love to talk to clients about, it's so interesting when we start really curating a collection, how much they actually realize they can get rid of. In the physical photos, how many duplicates there are, how many fuzzy photos there are, how many multiple photos of landmarks. You know, we don't need 6 pictures of the Eiffel Tower. You may not even really need one. Maybe there's one that your family is in front of and we want to keep that one and we can get rid of the rest. There's actually a lot of curating that you can do of those collections. And then there's a lot of ways to digitize and preserve and store those photo collections so that they can be shared and they can take up a lot less space in your household. I think people get a little overwhelmed by the digital options, and that's where I love to hold their hand through that process.
Yeah, I love that. It just takes a little bit of a thought process and somebody with you. All right, Joe, I want you to just quickly tell me about, we're going to talk about our client that he had a plan because he didn't want his son to have to make him move, so he wanted it to be on his terms. So tell him how that went and what he said afterwards.
I think that most of us in this room, because I'm right there with you, grew up in the nursing home phase. And nobody wanted to go to a nursing home. Nobody ever. It was because you had to go. And I think that this particular person was also in that mindset. And so he was kind of sad about the fact that he was going to be moving. He didn't really want to leave his home. It was the home he and his wife had shared, and she'd been gone for a few years. And it was hard, but he was of the mindset that it's time for me to go. I'm not eating well here. I'm not talking to people here. I need to be in a better place. So he had recognized that he wanted to make the move, but a part of him didn't want to make the move. And as we were meeting, and we probably met, I don't know, 6 or 7 times through the process, and every time he was just a little sad. He was having a hard time, and I kept saying, it's going to be okay. You've got to trust me. It's going to be okay. This is going to be your new home, and it's still going to be home. It's still going to be your stuff, and it's still going to be okay. And he would nod, and yes, it'll be fine, you know, that kind of thing. And I think one of the dearest stories I have is the day we finished his move. We started about 9 o'clock that morning, and we were finished around 3 or 3:30, which imagine that. Could you do that? Could you start packing that morning and be completely finished mid-afternoon? And we were. And I was the last one to leave, and I said, so is it okay? Is there anything else you want me to do? What can I do to make this? And he looked at me, not really with tears, but kind of that direction, and he said, you told me it would be home, and I didn't believe you. But he said, it's home. This is my stuff, and it's manageable now, and this is good, and thank you. That was one of those moments where I nearly cried because, and guys, we're batting 1,000 so far. It may change, but so far, I go back to see people after they've been in their new home for a week or two, and so far, every one of them says, I'm so glad I did this. I'm so glad this is where I am. And I love the people I'm around, and I love the food that's prepared, you know, yada, yada. I can go on and on.
Well, and Liz,
but
this makes me think of, it makes me think of the woman that, like, we didn't recognize her after, I mean, like,
yeah.
I walked into her new community, and I walked right past her, and she said, Becky. And I turned around and I looked, and different person, right?
Yeah, completely, because I saw her too.
Her house was probably one of, it wasn't a clinical hoard. You wouldn't put it on a scale, but literally the debris was up to our knees.
Yeah, it wasn't healthy. It was bad.
It was bad. And that's another thing that we do that an online estate sale can do differently is we will take on jobs like that.
Yeah, no, it's the stress relief that happens.
And you know what's interesting is they love their new home. They also don't miss the stuff.
No.
They don't miss the
It
stuff.
is it is a burden that has been lifted.
All right, so pitfalls that we'll swing through this and then we'll get questions. So if my mic runners can go ahead and get ready. Waiting too long, starting with the wrong category, that's the emotional versus not emotional. Making the wrong home updates like we talked about briefly. We just didn't have time to get into that today, but I'm happy to answer questions about that. Giving things away before you understand the sale options. We didn't really talk about that as much, but what I want you to know is if you give away your expensive stuff, then it doesn't, then you may not make enough on your estate sale. You may owe on the estate sale because there's a setup fee, and you want your stuff that you're selling to be more, to bring in more money than it costs for the setup fee. Does that make sense? So if you're getting rid of a bunch of stuff that's valuable, that's a problem.
I would say, okay, side note here, because I see this a lot when we're working with clients before we hand them over to the estate sale professional. I've seen so many notes from my team saying we did a Goodwill run at the end of the day. And I say, why did we do a Goodwill run? Leave literally everything in that home. And I stress this over and over again to clients, not just the expensive stuff, but the seemingly meaningless stuff to the Houston Rockets t-shirts. Leave it. Don't take it to Goodwill.
Yeah, good point. And then just guessing what will fit. That's a huge pitfall. So make sure that you do that. No. And then here's your takeaway for today, and then we'll do some questions. You're going to start small. You're going to start looking at your options. It's not a nursing home situation anymore. They are out there, but there are options that you will like, and you may age in place in your home, and I want that for you if you want that for you. But there may come a time when something happens that is outside of your control, and you need to know what options are out there, and it's free to look. So please look at what your options are. So if you need to make a decision quickly, you've already done your homework. And then get the right help early, not trying to figure this out yourself and like getting rid of your things that will carry your estate sale. Okay, Q&A. So do I have my mic runners? Who's running mics for me? Awesome. Raise your hand if you have a question. Really?
That is the quietest I've ever seen this.
I can tell stories all, you know.
No.
Maybe they just want more to-dos.
We've got some.
I just want to share something with you. I had a very dear friend that came from a historical city in Tennessee. And she had all these beautiful antiques in her house and everything. And she kept saying to me, what'll I do with them? What'll I do with them? And I said, I have no idea. Well, she died. And then about 3 weeks later, her daughter called me, and she was having a garage sale. And there's no doubt in my heart that she probably sold that stuff for nothing. And I just said to her, maybe you could have given it to a museum or the history center or something, but I'm sure that that was sold for nothing.
Bless your heart. Oh, yes, we've got a question over here.
Wait, where are we going?
Right here.
Mary, do you have a question?
A question. Okay, I've dealt with an estate sale for a friend, and I knew that it was a percentage of the sales that they got. But then I heard you say something a moment ago about a setup fee. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I would say don't get too far in the weeds on that, but yes.
One thing I want to say is I've got some flexibility today, and when we set up over here,
Yeah.
if anybody has any real specific questions, I'm happy to do a little group talk or get 2 or 3 of you together. Each estate is different.
Yeah.
Each house is different. And so, and a lot of what we do are taking the jobs that a regular estate sale person wouldn't do because it's just not enough stuff or it's not valuable enough stuff. So I do charge a setup fee, and that varies depending on the estate. And then I charge it, but my percentage is lower because what I'm trying to do is make sure that I'm covering my labor so that I don't lose money. And the other thing you have to think about is the more money you make on this sale, the more money I make when we have a percentage. So it's kind of a dual system.
So she's trying to make you more money.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll say also, Liz's company leaves us with an empty house. So even if it doesn't sell, like, because sometimes things don't sell in estate sales, traditional, not traditional, garage sales, you always have things left over even after a garage sale. But Liz's responsibility is to leave me with an empty house. So what doesn't sell, she's going to donate what she can, and then she'll
Yeah.
clean it out.
The average estate sale will only sell, a good estate sale, traditional estate sale will sell about 70% of your items. Our method, we sell about 95%, and then we have partners that come and take what's left. Anyway, there's a whole lot, we could do a whole session on estate sales. I just want to really be clear about this. Most estate sales do not make money.
Yeah, that's important for y'all to
You
know.
are leveraging the value of your goods to offset the costs of getting the house empty and ready, your asset empty to get ready for her to sell.
Yeah, yes, I want you to remember this. Your home is your nest egg. And so I need it to be clean and empty in order to sell it. And it is expensive and takes a lot of labor to empty a home. There are some cases where we can't do an estate sale. I did a house it's been about 18 months ago, and it was a bed bug infestation. And obviously, ethically, we cannot do an estate sale when someone's home is infested with bed bugs. We're just not going to do it. So the option for that family was to do a complete haul off. And the cost of a haul off for that property, it was about a 3,000 square foot home, I think. The cost of the haul off was about $6,000. So it's very expensive to empty a property. And so you're hoping that your personal items will carry the cost so that you can get your house emptied for no money out of pocket, and hopefully you have a little bit left over to go to a nice dinner. She wants you to make as much money as possible on your items. She wants that. I want that. Who doesn't want that for you? But realistically speaking, you know in your heart of hearts that people don't spend a lot of money on other people's stuff. It just doesn't happen. And so if you're being realistic with yourself, which is what I would encourage you to do, know that we just don't want you to spend $6,000 throwing it all in the trash. So let's hire someone to sell what we can, donate the rest, and just throw away what really is trash, okay? Now, we didn't get into some intricacies like what things sell and what don't. I would like to do that at some point in the future, and we might release a YouTube video about that or something, because I think that's really something that we could utilize together. But each of my panelists are going to stay around, so please pick their brains. They're so smart. They're so smart. I don't put people on stage that can't answer hard questions. Speaking of YouTube, I want you to know that, do we have another question? You have a question. Amy Wright, tell me your question.
I have a question. In our packet, the one that you were talking about, it talks about like first steps, your annual decluttering process. So for people like in the Downsizers Club that are not doing anything for years to come, they're like thinking about getting the wheels turning. When we talked to Catherine and she talks about like Joe gave us the medicine cabinet, right? And then there's some other things. What would just some of these people in here, I know we had a conversation before, want like a couple more first steps.
Yeah, I love that.
To get that going.
Yeah, if you pick this up off of our table, it has a calendar. So like in January, it says paper clutter. So you could scan and file important documents, reduce, who has VHS tapes? Who has a way to play VHS tapes? Okay.
Your old Disney tapes, please.
Oh yeah, Disney tapes sell. Okay. No. They're on my table. Yeah, they're on my table. So there's a calendar in here. February, I put junk drawer and linen closet. March, I put hobbies. So there's a whole list. So go grab this off the table because it's super helpful. Yeah, Shelly's holding it up right now. Thank you, Shelly. So yeah, thank you for that, Amy. All right, so we did a seminar on things to not do to your house that people are doing and they think it's going to make them extra money and it doesn't. That's on YouTube. We've done a seminar last month in North Oklahoma City. We did a seminar on traveling in retirement and some traveling tips. So we talk about lots of different things. Check out our YouTube channel. And on Facebook, we also release tips. And we would love for you to like our Facebook page. I'm gonna run through some other announcements and then I will leave this up at the end so you can grab this. If you don't know how to use a QR code, go see a member of my team and they will look at your phone and they'll help you find Facebook on your phone and help you follow Senior Living Truth Series. So just go grab them and they're happy to help you with that. Hey, I appreciate you guys very much. Make sure you hand us your yellow form and I am so thankful that you spent your morning with me. Thanks, guys.